Thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet Voice You Know with the News You Trust studio, sponsored by Grain Equipment Company, where innovation meets execution. I'm Dale Menyo. Looking over at the rain gauge, we're about 1.61 inches here in my studio for both Saturday and Sunday, and some of it down at the Beef Expo was coming down pretty strong. I did catch up with the Director of Agriculture about the Beef Expo. Joining me from the Ohio Department of Agriculture is Director Brian Baldridge. Nice to have you with us, Director. How many days for you so far at Beef Expo? We're talking on Friday.
Well, this is day 2, so I've been here 2 days, so we're rolling through, and we're excited about it. Elizabeth Harsh and her team with Ohio Cattlemen's, they've really dialed in some great weather. It's you never know on this one. It can be snow can be blowing. It can be raining, and you don't want to be outside looking at equipment. But let me tell you, today's a fun day to be looking at equipment outside.
Some days you're here wondering if people are going to come out because it's just warm enough at home. Everybody's got a list of what needs to get done this spring, and those are the ones like, yeah, we need to get more people in. So, but you're talking to lots of people in the aisles. I saw you down here at the booth talking to one of the exhibitors. What kind of conversations are you having?
Just what's going on in agriculture. Filling this role, being the director of ag, it's just talking to the industry, and that's what I love to do. To hear what's going on in that part of the state, this part of the state, and so forth. We're getting excited. A couple of warm days like this, and I think I'm in that category, made some of those mistakes. We get excited. We get ready to start thinking about going to our fields, and I've done that too early before myself, so been guilty, but it is, as everybody's really excited to look forward to spring and so forth. Today, this show, just thinking about our livestock industry and really dialing into the cattle industry, what it means to our state, the great work that's done from our cattle farmers, producing a wonderful, wonderful quality product.
Now, flashback to last year, a lot of guys were here all excited for the year, and then we had a drought. Have you talked to many people saying, how we made it through, what our recovery was like, we're rebuild kind of things? What are you hearing?
And talking with those folks, there's still a little bit of kind of questioning whether, I know our water tables are starting to get back up. We just want to make sure those get hopefully filled back up before we get into those spring months and get ready to go, which is right around the corner, because we don't want to start in dry into the season. So we're excited about what this spring brings. Obviously, how that drought hit, looking at our southern Ohio, southeast Ohio, and the impact. And it was good to be in a lot of those counties, talking directly to those producers, hearing the challenges that they were going through. And it was exciting not only to see, those federal programs that give some assistance, make them whole when we have a tough year like that. But then that engagement really increased the conversation at the state legislature. And they were able to come up with additional funds to piggyback on the top of those federal programs, just help our producers just a little bit more going through those challenging times.
Well, thank you for spending time with us and helping us to better understand agriculture. I'm Dale Menyo for the Ohio AgNet. I've been visiting with the Director of Agriculture, Director Brian Baldridge. And had we only known when we talked on Friday it was going to rain so heavy there on Sunday morning, and everybody across the state hopefully got some of the appropriate amount of moisture that they needed. Speaking of moisture, let's talk now about today's weather, brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Here's the forecast.
Not as cold today, but we are not going to revisit temperatures from late last week and the weekend anytime soon. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin. Let's take a look at that Ohio Ag weather update. Here's what's going on. We did have significant cold air wrap around into the eastern Corn Belt yesterday. Because of that, we were stuck with clouds and a little bit of drizzle. I think we shake that off through the day today. We probably don't warm up right away, but this afternoon with South Flow trying to ramp up, I do think that and sunshine gives us a run back into the upper 40s to mid and upper 50s across the state. Our warmest day of the week will likely be tomorrow with strong southwest flow, but again, I do not think we equal what we did last week, Friday and even into Saturday. But we are also seeing that warm-up come ahead of our next weather system. That low-pressure area tracks out of northeast Kansas across northern Missouri and into eastern Iowa before moving through the upper Midwest. That track is west and north of us, so I think that we are going to be seeing less precipitation than some of the harder hit areas farther to our north and west, but we still likely are going to be seeing rain develop in here Wednesday afternoon and evening, continuing into the overnight and into early Thursday. Most of this is going to happen in the warm sector, so I'm still looking at rain, but I won't rule out an end as some sloppy wet snowflakes as temperatures fall quickly on Thursday. Liquid equivalent precipitation from this frontal passage, 1/4 to 3/4 of an inch is what I'm expecting. We stay chilly then to finish the week, Thursday afternoon through Friday. Temperatures moderate a little bit over the weekend. The weekend features a system passing by from I-70 southward, rain mostly, and then we see colder air try and move in for most of the rest of next week. That cold air could be here from Sunday right on through, likely the 29th into the 30th. I'm Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. Well, roughly 1 in 7 federal offices leases terminated by the Trump administration's Department of Government Efficiency belongs to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. That's based on DTN review of those canceled leases. The W.R. Poige Federal Building in Temple, Texas, where USDA was paying $2.4 million in annual rent, making it the largest single-year lease termination for the department, according to the DOE's website. What they didn't point out too much farther down is the number of offices that are actually there for FSA, USDA, NRCS, and others, all a part of that. Most of the largest USDA office contracts canceled by Department of Government Efficiency were in Republican-led states: Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Georgia, Idaho, Kentucky, Missouri, North Carolina, and Texas. The single most expensive lease contract terminated was a U.S. Forest Service contract for a facility in Anchorage, Alaska, which alone accounted for $7.8 million in contract savings and an annual rent of $1.18 million. 6 office closures in Alaska amounted to $11.35 million in savings, the highest of any state, mainly due to the Anchorage lease. The GSA response suggests there could be multiple agencies affected across the 111 USDA offices terminated. A typical local USDA service center, for instance, often houses the Farm Service Agency, NRCS, and potentially Rural Development or Rural Housing Service staff as well. And according to the DOE's listing, the federal government has canceled contracts for 36 NRC offices and 22 FSA offices. It is unclear how many of those may have been joint leases for multiple agencies. In research notes, the first published scientific paper on rumen 8, that's rumen the number 8, animal trial conducted by a major university found that rumen 8's investigational veterinary product reduced total methane emissions in cattle by 95.2%, with no significant impact on animal production parameters or the rumen environment. The new UC Davis study shows a feed methane emission product reduces methane in cattle production significantly. According to Rumen 8 press release, the trial was conducted by the Department of Animal Science at the University of California, Davis, and evaluated the effects of Rumen 8 investigational veterinary product on various cattle production factors. Compared to other studies on synthetic methane analogs, the CH4 methane reduction observed with rumen 8 oil IVP in this study are among the most substantial reported. The study's authors concluded neither treatment significantly affected animal production parameters or rumen environment parameters. The authors noted that animal source foods provide high-quality protein and essential nutrients with high bioavailability, which is key to addressing global undernutrition. The UC Davis trial and publication marks an important milestone for Rumen 8, as a globally renowned research institution has now validated the methane reductions of Rumen 8 seen in Rumen 8 studies conducted in Australia, New Zealand, and Brazil, Rumen 8 CEO David Messon said. Additional trials are currently underway in key cattle markets globally as Rumen 8 pursues regulatory approval for its feed and water methane-reducing additives. Stay tuned, back with more after this.
Don't miss out on a huge inventory of trucks and heavy equipment coming up for bid in the Ritchie Brothers Great Lakes Regional Sales Event, March 27th and 28th. All of our vehicles and equipment are always available for you to browse and inspect before the sale, both in person and online, so you never miss a detail. Register online today so you can take part and get ready to bid on a variety of assets that include truck tractors, van trucks, van trailers, excavators, flatbed trailers, and so much more. Visit rbauction.com to learn more and get registered.
This is Dale Menyo with the Ohio AgNet. For over 25 years, my truck has been running strong on biodiesel, reliable, high-performance fuel that keeps me on the road promoting agriculture. Every gallon helps power Ohio's economy, protect our environment, and support our hardworking soybean farmers. The best part? It works in any diesel engine. No modifications needed. Take it from me, Choose biodiesel and drive with purpose. Learn how at soyohio.org. A note on the calendar: on Thursday, Powered by Soy Biodiesel will head to Farm Credit Mid-America office in Mount Orab for our next monthly update. Also, crude oil futures settle higher to close the week on Friday, driven by news of a possible ceasefire in the Russian-Ukraine war under certain conditions, while concerns of the impact of the tariffs keep weighing on the market. Now, the U.S. dollar index continued its downward trend by dropping 0.12% to 103.7 against a basket of foreign currencies. Russian President Vladimir Putin said Thursday that he agrees in principle for a 30-day ceasefire with Ukraine, but he emphasized that he would have to discuss this first with the Trump administration. The oil futures market responded positively to this announcement, even though stricter sanctions on Russian oil trade imposed by the administration of President Joe Biden remain in place. However, expectations of abundant global supplies continue setting the bearish tone in the market, which has been further supported in recent weeks by the uncertainty generated by tariffs imposed by the Trump administration on imported goods from China, Canada, and Mexico. Ample supplies and weak demand have been confirmed by Energy Information Administration and the American Petroleum Institute. Data shows a build in U.S. crude inventories for the week ended March 7th. Today's market analysis is brought to you by the Louis Dreyfus Company, excited to be building the newest state-of-the-art soybean crush facility in Upper Sandusky, Ohio. Want a chance to market your beans at LDC? Find out more at 574-566-2113. Here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets finished mixed on Friday. We were a little bit weaker in corn, and we saw the wheat market down. Soybeans were higher. Meanwhile, on the livestock markets, we were mostly higher. Outside markets, well, it was a little bit of a rebound there with the Dow futures up over 600 points. Crude oil was up about 63 cents. So I don't think it was a risk on or a risk off day. I think it was a sigh of relief day for the most part, without a lot of new additional headlines. Now, over the weekend, headlines galore. Let's start with the presidential administration ignoring a judge's order about deportation of criminals that are immigrants out of the country and heading towards El Salvador. So what does that do? Who knows? We also heard some headlines about Russia and Ukraine. They traded barbs back and forth, barbs militarily, both attacks going either way, in the midst of Russia putting out what their conditions were for a ceasefire. I'm not sure that does much of anything. And then we were looking at the pre-opening market calls coming in mixed as we moved through the late evening and overnight yesterday. Brokers are estimating that managed money sold about 3,600 contracts of wheat, 5,600 contracts on corn. They were flat on soybeans. Interesting, as you look at the commitment of traders reports, it does look like the funds are slowly but surely getting to a neutral position in the grains. They're pretty much there now on beans, but are still long 147 to 150,000 contracts on corn, so they probably do have more length to shed. However, open interest last week would suggest that it wasn't all long liquidation, that there were some new positions that came into the marketplace. So it'll be interesting to see how all of that works out. The WASDE is going to have to raise its 24-25 soy oil export estimate by at least 600 million pounds to get to 2.4 billion pounds. Growing U.S. soy oil export sales are pushing biofuel producers in a statistical corner, where enlarged seasonal biofuel production and diminished used cooking oil imports could rally soy oil and the oil share spread. Keep an eye on oil this week and next. I'm Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. Today's market's brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Overnight at the open, July corn 471 up 3.5. December new crop 453 3/4 up 2 3/4. The May soybeans are $10.21 up a nickel, while November new crop is also up a nickel at $10.23. The July wheat up 7 at $5.80. Carried out to September, you're up 7.5 at $5.97 1/4 cents. In livestock, April cattle up $1.12 at $203.17. June's up $1.07 at $199.35. April lean hogs up $1 at $86.62, while May is up 40 cents at $89.20. April feeder cattle $281.20, up $1.22. May feeder cattle up $1.12. Closing Friday's trade at $282.65. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dale Minyo. This is the Ohio AgNet.